Okay, let's unpack this. We have a really ambitious deep dive today. We're focusing on an extraordinary calendar, recalibration of, well, arguably the most crucial week in history, the Passion Week.
It's certainly ambitious.
And this isn't just a historical argument, is it? It's a radical remapping, and it's all designed to predict the future.
Indeed. We're looking at the study Crucifixion, Church Age, and the New Wine Theory by Louis B. Vega. And you're right, the ambition here is it's massive.
So the core thesis, the big idea, is that the true date of the crucifixion was Wednesday, April 14th, 32 AD.
Yes.
And that date shift, just moving the established timeline, is then used to create a really precise prophetic template for understanding the entire church age.
From its absolute beginning right up to its conclusion.
So our mission today is to explore the three main pillars of this pretty intricate theory.
Yeah.
First, the absolute necessity of a Wednesday crucifixion.
Then the staggering astronomical anomalies he claims happened that day.
And finally, this new wine theory, which is what he uses to set the start date of the church age.
And, the real reason anyone would go to this much trouble, all this chronological detail, is predictive.
Right. The author is searching for clues about when the church age will end. Specifically, it's tied to the fulfillment of what he calls the 153 numerical quota of the Gentiles.
And we should probably give some context there for you, the listener. This 153 numerical quota is absolutely key to the whole theory.
Okay.
It refers to the number of fish caught in that miraculous catch in the book of John after the resurrection. For many, that number, 153, it symbolically represents the full number of Gentiles to be saved.
So when the net is full, so to speak.
Exactly. When that number is met, the church age is over. So if the author can fix the start date with absolute precision, he believes he can determine the length and therefore the end date.
And what's so fascinating here is how he does it. I mean, it's a combination of calendar math, astronomical conjecture that, well, it contradicts standard science, and a very specific scriptural interpretation.
A whole chronological overhaul.
Yeah. So let's start with that Wednesday date itself.
The Wednesday crucifixion is the absolute linchpin. The study insists April 14, 32 AD has to be a Wednesday.
Why? Why so specific? Why not the traditional Friday?
It's all about the prophetic language, specifically the phrase midst of the week.
Ah, from the book of Daniel.
Exactly, Daniel 9. It speaks of the Messiah being cut off in the middle of a prophetic week. But more importantly, if you use the standard Friday to Sunday timeline, you just don't get 3 full days and 3 full nights in the tomb.
Which is what Jesus promised with the sign of Jonah.
The 72-hour requirement, it's a deal breaker for the author. If you die Friday afternoon, you can't be in the tomb for 72 hours and then rise early Sunday morning. The math just doesn't work.
But if he died on a Wednesday afternoon?
Then the math changes completely. It solves that central puzzle. And he synchronizes the details meticulously. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the cross, that corresponds exactly to the morning and evening sacrifices.
And he was buried before sunset, which began the high day Sabbath.
Crucially, yes.
So if you shift the crucifixion, you have to shift everything else back with it. Traditional Palm Sunday is no longer on a Sunday.
Precisely. In this model, the triumphal entry happens on a Sabbath Saturday, April 10th. And this is necessary because the Passover lamb had to be inspected 4 days before the sacrifice.
Saturday to Wednesday.
Perfect 4-day inspection period.
Okay, so then the Lord's Supper falls on Tuesday evening, April 13th. The author sees this as more than just a meal.
Oh, much more. He calls it the institution of protocols for the church age, even a marriage betrothal ceremony.
A betrothal?
Yes, and he points to a critical detail. During that meal, Jesus doesn't take the final of the 4 traditional cedar cups, the cup of redemption.
And that's significant because
it reinforces the betrothal idea. The covenant is made, but the marriage isn't consummated. That cup, the author argues, will be drunk later at the marriage supper of the Lamb.
Wow. Okay, so this is where the strict 72-hour adherence to the sign of Jonah really pays off for his theory. If death was Wednesday at 3 p.m.
You add exactly 72 hours.
And you land at 3 p.m. on Saturday, April 17th.
That's the proposed resurrection time. Just moments before sunset, right before the Sabbath would have ended.
Which perfectly explains why the women arrived early Sunday morning, the first day of the week, to find the tomb already empty.
He had already risen hours earlier. It satisfies the prophecy exactly. It is, you have to admit, a very clean chronological model.
If you accept that initial Wednesday premise, yes.
But of course, all this calendar math, it has to be fixed to some kind of external historical markers.
Right, connecting it to the bigger picture. The study triangulates this 32 AD date by fixing 2 other key dates. Jesus' birth is set at Naturi 3 BC.
using some specific astronomical alignments, yes. And the start of his public ministry, the Jubilee Proclamation, is fixed in 28 AD.
And that triangulation confirms Jesus was 33 years old when crucified, which fits the pattern of a 3.5-year ministry.
It does. For the author, it resolves a lot of issues that come with the alternative 33 AD date.
Okay, now we have to talk about the most extraordinary claim in the entire paper, the astronomical contention. The source says that both a solar and a lunar eclipse happened on the same day, April 14th, 32 AD. And I have to pause here because a solar eclipse is impossible during a full moon, and you need a full moon for a lunar eclipse. So how does he explain the 3 hours of darkness?
Well, that 3 hours of darkness is the driving constraint. You know, a normal solar eclipse lasts, what, 7, maybe 8 minutes?
Right, not 3 hours.
So to account for 180 minutes of total darkness, from noon to 3 p.m., the author has to invoke something extreme, something non-standard.
And that's where he introduces the second sun.
Exactly. The specific conjecture is that the darkness was caused by an extraordinary celestial body. He calls it the second sun, or nemesis.
And this body is supposedly 7 times larger than Jupiter.
7 times larger. The idea is that its passage caused a total eclipse that would have darkened the entire planet for 3 hours on both hemispheres at the same time.
Wait a minute. A body 7 times the size of Jupiter, passing close enough to cause a global 3-hour blackout. And we just don't see it now. I mean, that's not just controversial. That changes everything we know about the solar system. How does he account for that?
He presents it as a necessity. He says it's the only way to satisfy the biblical account of 180 minutes of darkness. He argues the event was so cataclysmic, causing the Great Earthquake, moving tectonic plates, that non-Christian historians from that period actually recorded it.
And this is what caused the tombs to open.
That's the idea, that this global event was the only mechanism powerful enough to cause the opening of the tombs of the righteous dead, as mentioned in the Gospels.
And the blood moon.
The total lunar eclipse, the blood moon, he says, that happened at midnight, a direct parallel to the original Passover in Egypt. And he notes it was visible in the constellation Libra, which, you know, anciently was depicted as an altar.
The altar of the cross of Calvary.
The symbolism is very direct.
So this whole sequence, black sun, blood moon, it's not just a one-time event for him. It's a template.
Correct. A prophetic template. This fulfillment of the prophet Joel's sun, turning to black, moon to blood, he says it will repeat. During the 7-year tribulation, this second sun, this nemesis, will return. But this time as a massive instrument of judgment.
Okay, so let's shift gears. How does this established date, April 14th, 32 AD, affect the start date of the church age? This is where the new wine theory comes in.
Right. And this all hinges on an alternative way of counting to Pentecost based on Leviticus 23.
So not the traditional count.
No. He proposes that Pentecost is mirrored like a menorah, linking the spring feasts and the fall feasts. So you have a count of 49 days and then another count of 50 days.
A total of 99 days. And a double count.
A double count, yeah. And he looks at 2 possible starting points for this. The traditional one would start on the Sunday after the sheaf wave offering, which is April 18th in his model.
And where does that land you?
If you run that 49 plus a 50-day count, you land on July 28, 32 AD.
But that's not the one he favors. He uses what he calls the Nisan 15 count.
Yeah.
Why that date?
He favors starting the count from Nisan 15, which is April 15th, because it aligns with the pattern of the Exodus journey. He sees the Exodus as a prophetic roadmap, so that single-day shift in the start of the count is absolutely crucial for his prophetic timing.
And if you start on April 15th and run the 49 plus 50-day mirrored count, where do you end up?
You end up on his favorite start date for the church age, July 23, 32 AD.
723.
Exactly. And that date, July 23rd, is called the Feast of New Wine. It falls in the 4th Jewish month. And this provides immediate prophetic relevance because it aligns with Jesus saying there would be 4 months and then the harvest.
So the new wine feast signifies the full maturity of the harvest.
Right. And that makes the connection clear. The start date isn't arbitrary. It aligns with the time of the white wheat harvest. This specific harvest template, July 23, the new wine feast, is seen by the author as the prophetic template for when the bride of Christ is to be harvested.
The rapture event.
That's the moment.
And he tries to solidify this by going back to Acts 2.
He does. He argues that when the Apostle Peter is speaking at Pentecost and he mentions the celestial signs, the sun becoming black, the moon turning to blood, that Peter was intentionally pointing back to the crucifixion day, April 14th, using that celestial trauma to anchor the start of the new covenant.
So really, the ultimate driving force of this entire elaborate theory is the search for a perfect template.
It is.
If this recalibration is accurate, Wednesday death, Saturday resurrection, church age, starting on the new wine feast, July 23rd.
Then that starting template suggests a mirrored end date, an end date that would coincide with a similar summer white wheat wedding. So he's basically predicting a July conclusion to the church age once that 153 quota is fulfilled.
Now, to get these dates to line up across 2,000 years, you can't just use a modern date converter. The calendar has changed.
No, you can't. He had to address the discrepancies from the Gregorian calendar change. In fact, he uses a very technical tool to basically overturn accepted dates.
What tool is that?
He uses Zeller's congruence. It's an algorithm designed to calculate the day of the week for any date. And he used it to establish that Wednesday date, even when it puts him in direct disagreement with, say, the Naval Observatory.
So it's a bold claim of methodological superiority. He's saying his algorithm is more accurate.
That is the core takeaway, yes. The belief is that if the beginning date is correctly identified, July 23, 32 AD, then that date holds the key to the mirror image end date, completing the Great Harvest prophecy.
So what does this all mean? We've gone through a really intricate theory that moves the crucifixion to a Wednesday in 32 AD.
Which requires a hypothetical second sun 7 times the size of Jupiter.
Hinges the resurrection on a Saturday afternoon and resets the start of the church age to the new wine feast in July. And it's all based on a dual count interpretation of Leviticus.
All to figure out when that 153 quota of the Gentiles is finally met.
The author establishes a very clear, very specific beginning date, July 23, 32 AD, based on this harvest template, to find a mirrored end date for the church age.
When the final harvest is secured.
This raises a big question for you to think about. Given the reliance on interpreting ancient calendar data, the decision to use complex algorithms to overturn tradition, and the reliance on very specific alternative readings of Scripture to create this prophetic template, how much weight should one place on the exact specific day counts versus the overarching prophetic patterns of harvest and new wine that the author emphasizes? Is the pattern the message, or is the date the ultimate goal?